All right, if you believe in omens, this is certainly a strong one. Welcome to the show, Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. That's Mike Jones. Got a little abridged edition working here today, so a lot of things are working in a short period of time due to the fact that you cannot drive in South Florida, where we hail from, without air conditioning working perfectly in your car. And I'm talking about the setting is Arctic tundra. You feel like you're Chuck Mersine carrying a ball in that final drive as the Green Bay Packers were able to overcome in improbable fashion the Dallas Cowboys in the Ice Bowl. That's what you need. So we're going to get right to the stuff here. But I'm a big believer in omens. I do a show yesterday, a handicapping show with Mike Jones on Bleacher Brothers platform. And he's got no gel in his hair. It's the first time I've seen him without the gel in his hair. And I didn't know. I thought, when did I invite like Don King on the show? He looked totally different with his hair in its normal position there. And then what happened, Mike? I mean, I noticed you're back to it, and for good reason, right?
Yeah, Joe didn't work out.
Yeah.
For the night in hockey and gave out some games to a player I know, and he was, needless to say, told me to put the gel back in your hair. That was what he said. So I woke up this morning listening to him.
At that point.
Yeah, woke up this morning listening. We had one of those nights, bad hockey night, but we're gonna scrape off the canvas and
Well,
come with a football game tonight. I believe it was a great one being played tonight.
yeah, I'm no better. I mean, I'm on the show yesterday, flying solo. We're talking about some of the reasons I think I mentioned many of the reasons I despise Ohio State, but which we talked about yesterday. You know what? I give out the Pistons very reluctantly, thinking, Antetokounmpo, all this trade talk now escalating. Not that he's not accustomed to it, but they'd lost 7 in a row. I think they were horrible. 9-13. Didn't look like they're going anywhere. It looked like they were trying to even take into consideration the initial stages of a trade. And Detroit come back and won 2 after losing 2 games, snapping their 13-game winning streak. I figured, all right, late 3 on the road. What the hell? And then what happened? Antetokounmpo's out of the ballgame. The line went to like 16.
He got hurt very early on. And I looked up, Pistons were up like 12 early, 13. The line went to 16.
Cruising.
I looked at it like, wow. And somebody's, again, when you're betting live, get a handle on a game and go take a look at it. There's a lot of guys I know that are veteran bettors that have now backed off betting a game at the start of the game and want to play the live bet. So I'm not saying it's advantage. I know it's tough. The juice is high. You have to probably hit about 63, 64% of your bets to kind of survive in this, which is a high number. But if you can watch a game and get a feel for it, there's opportunities. Haven't been great for me lately, but it's one of these things where you're sitting there watching a game the other night. I can tell you I was live betting with the Commanders. You could have got the Commanders on that first drive, plus 3.5 late. You were getting them when it was a 3-point game, and you could have found a 3.5 late wood, thinking that the game's gonna end. It goes to overtime, which is your mistake, right? But you figured
Normally
we're down 7-0. So I had them, whatever, but then they scored a touchdown to tie. And sometimes there's an advantage to that. You got to play 4 downs, and so it's a different game today. But in that case, I thought that was pretty weird. And the Heat were another one. Everybody thought the Heat were coming on. Now the stat that I think we got to pay attention to the Miami Heat. 14-8 overall, great start, high scoring team, playing a lot of totals over, but 1-3 against the number with Tyler Hero back in the lineup. They made a little run a few years back with Tyler Hero out. They say he's a liability defensively, which is a live scoring. It's one of these things where does he take the ebb and flow of a good basketball team and all of a sudden disrupt it? Norman Powell didn't play last night, which I think was a big loss for the Heat. But, AD's back with Dallas. I looked at number, +5 over 238. Over doesn't come close, and you get the +5. You're holding on win. It gets a big interior team that could slow the Heat down, and that's what seemed to happen last night.
Cooper Flagg had a good ball game, including a couple of clutch baskets at the end, which is always good to see. So, it made some sense with Davis coming back. Davis, a hell of a player when he's in there. The problem, Nico Harrison, you'll find him in parts unknown now. The former GM there, maybe guilty of one of the. At least when Nolan Ryan got traded for Jim Fregosi, there was a slight amount of logic to it. I mean, Ryan hadn't become Ryan yet. He was sort of wild. He was having issues with blisters, and you didn't know if he was ever going to harness the obvious superior talent that he had with the fastball and the breaking ball and become the pitcher that he did. But And Fregosi, a veteran guy that they needed to plug in a position. One of the most horrendous trades. But I mean, with the injury factor with Anthony Davis, trading Luka Doncic, who's far and away like leading the league in scoring, even outscoring SGA so far this year, uh, may go down as one of the most horrendous moves ever made by a general manager who didn't literally have a gun to his head or was facing a firing squad at the time, which he did eventually. You thought
Yeah.
he would get fired the next day, but he lasted. They used a little discretion there, and they finally. I'm
You
sure they
know, not
right.
not to bring up that Nico Harrison, but here's my thought on that: is they look out and they see Luca get in shape.
Yeah,
Curved his life. LeBron might have been a good influence. Had a talk with him. Said this is what you got to do to be committed. All of a sudden happens. Case in point, I think the same thing with Brian Dable. Eventually, Joe Shane. They buy into Daniel Jones, and now all of a sudden Jones is producing in another city. Maybe that led to what the Giants decided to get rid of Brian Dable and soon to be get rid of Joe Shane. So I think you're going to see sometimes it's not what happens in your team, but what happens after the trade or decision you make that happened somewhere else in the league. That could be making your decisions, not which is kind of different than what we've known to have happen in the past.
yeah. Certainly, they look a little foolish. Although at the time, it didn't seem like Daniel. Unfortunately, in their system, for whatever reason, no offensive line, you would know this, just wasn't working out.
Yeah,
And he didn't seem to have the kind of spark it would take to overcome all of that.
right.
But in the right circumstances, we saw it with Sam Darnold. We've seen it with others
Mhm.
where they go somewhere else after being deemed to be a bust. Baker Mayfield may even fall into
Yep,
that category. So
sure.
it's not uncommon in the NFL for a guy to
Yeah,
prosper somewhere else after looking like he fell flat on his face. All right, interesting division in the key three conference championship games, the ones that appear to have the marquee teams in them anyway. Was watching a grid of 7 handicappers following that this morning in my New York Post, and it's like 4-3, one way or the other in all 3 games.
yeah.
So a lot of division there. A quick thought. You want to touch on the three?
Yeah, I did start thinking hard about this. I just heard that I didn't realize this, but it just came over the radio as I was pulling in here to do the show that that Ohio State hasn't won the Big Ten title. Could that be true? That none of these guys on this roster have won a Big Ten championship? That to me sounded weird when I heard it, but they're talking about it. And if that's the truth, they feel that Ohio State's more motivated for this game than you would think. I just look at this game like, okay, Ohio State steamrolled Indiana last year. Indiana lucky to beat Iowa, so they say. Had a great win on the road against Oregon. I just have a feeling this game is close just because the monkey off the back for Ryan Day, the relief of beating Michigan, all that celebration, all that party, get right into it. This is going to be a great test. I, I like Ohio State more if they don't play well today, that they get a challenge in the tournament. I do believe Ohio State's, and I'm going to go clear, the best team. I think they're the best team by far. And so I would bet them, right away to win the national title. And we're going to see the focus. I just like Caleb Downs a lot. I think Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football. I mean, they have the tools and they have it. And then now they're saying that Sands going up against Mendoza, who's the front runner for the Heisman, that he's making his Heisman run today. So a lot of interesting takes that I didn't hear and thought about on the way in that makes me rethink my position. But I'm still going to stick with the dog here. Not in love with it as much as I was yesterday, but not knowing what Ohio State's got on the line. But I just think a lot of that overwhelming after that big game. It happens in all sports. You get that just slight letdown, and I just love Signetti and what he's doing in Indiana. And I just think the old Lee Corso factor. Like, there's a lot of things that make him a vibe there. The game being played in Indiana. I just like Indiana a little bit.
We'll see what happens. Certainly a Cinderella story with Signetti and company, and put a lot of points on the board. Not that far behind in terms of the numerology defensively. Ohio State are remarkable under
Mhm.
8 points a game, giving up 7.8, only 11.8 for Indiana.
Yeah.
And they put up 40 some odd points a game. So very interesting challenge. We'll see. I don't know why. Just as much as I despise Ohio State, I mean, I hated that call by Terry Porter, one of the most bogus pass interference calls in history. I mean, guy's standing right there looking at it, and he doesn't make a call. And this clown with Ohio State ties comes running across the field there and going, "Oh no, he touched him." The
Right.
replays, you don't need to have the Zapruder film to realize that the replays clearly show that the contact came after the
Yeah.
receiver had already dropped the pass, and yet that stands. So another stain along with the entire reign there of our favorite head coach, Urban Meyer. Disgusting, disgraceful. I mean, any negative adjective you can attach, anything that brings you to the point of just wanting to throw up your breakfast, that would be associated with Urban Meyer. So I root against him with every fiber in my
Yeah.
emotional body being. But I think they probably win this game. And look, I'm shooting blanks like like I was secretariat, but
Yeah.
yeah, or cigar, I guess, was the horse that was syndicated for a massive amount of study, and then just
Sure.
couldn't do the job. All the Viagra in the world didn't make any difference. The horse just didn't. Yeah, so no matter what, I still think that it's been kind of a smooth run. I don't know that the motivational factor will be, leaning into the red there, saying that Ohio State doesn't have a commitment in the game. Indiana has every reason to want to shine.
Right.
So, because they're probably looking at it as if, this is their chance to really distinguish themselves. They beat Ohio State. So we'll see. That's interesting. Georgia, Bama, a quick thought on that. And then,
Yeah, Alabama's so much to play for. Again, a blowout loss might eliminate them. Alabama's got the early win over Georgia. I think that's a little revenge factor in the Georgia win. I like Kirby Smart in these spots better than I like Caleb DeBoer. I think there's a coaching edge for Georgia in this game. Again, a really tough spot because I think Alabama does really need this game a little bit more, just to maintain their position. Getting the jump over Notre Dame this week in the poll tells you that they kind of think even a win against Auburn was worth something a little bit, which I don't see. But yeah, it's just kind of one of these games. I just like Georgia small, the line 2.5, telling you to bet Alabama. I'm going to go against that little trend. I don't love these games. I'm not in love with all three of them that we picked yesterday.
yeah.
But I think it's one of these games where I'm going to get a handle on it, maybe make a halftime play a little bit more. But I think Georgia wins the game, and so at that point you got to lay 2.5.
All right, let's give the fans something to deal with tonight. You do have an
Yeah.
NFL game, a good one,
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys and Lions. A lot of division on that one in terms of sort of a 50-50 call. And anything else that strikes you here, Mike Jones?
Yeah, pick five. It's going to be one of my pick five NFL games this week. It's just weird. You look at this game and say everybody loves Dallas, lying down to 5.5, down to 3. People, we just heard out from Circa that all the money line bets are coming in on the Cowboys. Tells me the public, wise guys all betting it. Wouldn't be surprised to see it 3.5. Dan Campbell's factor, 14 straight games off a loss. He's won. Didn't get a cover last time against the Giants. Both teams have had since last Thursday a full week off for this game. You know, on St. Brown not playing, Terry Arnold on the IR. They're fighting injuries on the offensive line. Everything tells you don't bet Detroit, and that's why I'm going to take them tonight. So,
Right.
Detroit -3 would be one of my plays.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, we're going to go to Sunday. The Jet Factor. Teams betting playing the Jets the following week are 111 against the number. That rides Atlanta Falcons. So I'm going to ride the hot Seattle Seahawks, who caught a break in Mac Browser through one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen on Sunday. Watching the game, can't figure out what these coaches are doing. And I feel like maybe McConnell's a little lost a little bit. So I like Seattle. I like your bet yesterday. I'm going to go against the Vikings. I think why the line is very weird there. People are bet Washington plus. Washington goes to a 1.5 favorite, and now it goes back the other way. Is that knowing that either Jacob Daniels is playing or not, or is now they're going to get J.J. McCarthy back, which I think might happen, and that's why Brosner will be out.
I hope they do because I'm going against them also.
So we got Washington +2. Also, I like. I'm going to take a ride here. Real interesting game. Great game. Moved it to 425. Chicago Bears are getting it done on the offensive line. And I love offensive line. This is the best challenge they've got. They're getting 6.5 from Green Bay. Division game, one of these tough spots. I just don't like laying that wood a little bit. They're getting healthier on the defense in Chicago. I think it's a competitive game, and I think Chicago keeps it close. Don't know if they win. They can keep it close. Chicago again only has one win against winning. Two wins against teams with a winning record. So it's just you're kind of looking at them like they're playing a little better on a little streak. Wins over Pittsburgh and Philly in the last couple of weeks. So I like Chicago, keep it close. And I'm going on a real whim here, but I'm going to take a home dog in the division, which I like when you get more than a touchdown. Go out to Arizona. A little bit of a hangover still, I think. I think Rams get the win, but I like 8.5 with the Cardinals. They kept it close against Tampa. Gave me a lucky win because of an early line you bet. We had a late cover. If you're waiting a Sunday getting 4, you had a cover with Arizona. They're just playing hard, and they have some talent on the defense side of the ball. Both teams know each other very well. I'm not sure laying 8.5 on the road, watching with the way the Rams played last week in a bad weather game, losing as a 10.5-point favorite, bouncing right back here. Should maybe bounce back, but I'll take the 8.5.
All right, very good. Man's on a roll, and you can trust him now because he's got the gel back in his hair. Which how you went away from that, Mike Jones?
Big
You look
mistake.
good. You look good. You look like a kid. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks, Mike. As always, have the professor tomorrow. We'll get some analysis on the college playoff games, certainly, and what maybe speculation he has about the college football playoff, if you're betting on that. For Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForrest. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow with the professor on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.